I've tried channeling the best Peaky Blinders look I could do. I don't own a newsboy cap, so this is the best you're gonna get. Today we're talking about Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man, the long-awaited return of Tommy Shelby. If you enjoy movie reviews like this, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more reviews on the way. Now, I have been a huge fan of Peaky Blinders for years, so I was really looking forward to this film, but I've got a few things I need to talk about. The last season of Peaky Blinders was in 2022, which meant before sitting down to watch this movie, I actually had to search for a recap online. And I'll be honest, I get a bit frustrated when I have to do homework before watching a movie. If I press play, I want the film to remind me what's going on, not Google or a 15-minute YouTube recap. So just be aware, if you're sitting down to watch this movie and you haven't seen the show or don't remember the last season very well, you might feel a bit lost at the start. This is definitely not a film you can jump into without having watched the series, but the film does start off with a bang. There's counterfeit money coming out of Germany, bombings in Birmingham, and the story is set in 1940 during World War II, which is actually a really interesting setting for the Peaky Blinders world. And I have to say, the recreation of wartime Britain is done really well. The streets, the factories, the smoke in the air, everything looks gritty and feels authentic. The show was very grown up and very dark, and the tone and theme of this movie carries that. Now, I need to talk about Arthur. Why the hell did Arthur not return for the film? Arthur Shelby is such a huge part of Peaky Blinders, and when it's mentioned that he took his own life, I was genuinely annoyed. It just felt really disrespectful to the character and to the fans. But I did speak too soon, because his death actually plays a part in the story later on. Even so, I still think the film really misses his presence. Arthur brings chaos, emotion, unpredictability, and without him, something definitely feels missing. Now, one of the standout performances in this film, though, is Barry Keoghan. He is so good in this film. He's unpredictable, intense, vulnerable, and every time he's on screen, you're just watching him because you don't know what he's going to do next. He is quickly becoming one of those actors where if he's in something, you know it's going to be interesting. There are some classic Tommy Shelby moments in this film as well. Ultimately, that's what we're here for. One scene I loved is when Tommy walks back into the garrison, rubs his cigarette on his lips before lighting it, just in glorious Tommy Shelby fashion. And then later he sticks a grenade in a man's shirt, the guy runs away, the grenade explodes, blowing the garrison windows out and sending glass everywhere. Giving the message, do not mess with Tommy Shelby. Even in his older age, he's still the most dangerous man in the room. One thing I really like about this film, though, is that Peaky Blinders has always been about family, just as much as the gang and the criminal empire, and this movie continues that tradition. This is actually a very personal story about Tommy saving his son and making amends by returning to the world he had left behind. So, while there's still crime and violence and politics, at its core, this film is really about family, legacy, and fixing the mistakes of the past. And I think that side of the story actually works really well. Tommy Shelby in this film does feel slightly different. He's older, more tired, haunted by his losses and feel like he's carrying the weight of everything that's happened across the entire series. He's not the ambitious gangster building an empire anymore. He spends a lot of the film writing a book called The Immortal Man, trying to get his story down and pass on lessons to his son. So this version of Tommy feels less like a gangster and more like a man trying to control how he will be remembered. And I actually really liked that idea for the character. My biggest issue with the film for me, though, is the pacing. It takes about an hour before Tommy really gets back into action. But once he does, he's relentless and ruthless. The problem is the film feels like it suddenly rushes the story in the second half to get to the ending. Honestly, this story could have easily been an entire season instead of a movie. And I really wish that is the angle they took. There's a really interesting story here with the war, the counterfeit money, the new enemies, but it just doesn't get enough time to fully develop, especially the antagonist, played by Tim Roth. This should have been stretched into another full season so that the story and the ending had more time to breathe. And with the ending, I have to be honest, it was nowhere near as emotional as I wanted it to be. After 6 seasons and all the history with these characters, I expected something a lot more emotional and impactful. It's not a bad ending, it just feels a bit rushed and not as satisfying as it should have been. Overall, I would say this is a good movie, but it is a disappointing one to the Peaky Blinders legacy. It's definitely worth watching if you're a fan of the show, and there are some great Tommy Shelby moments, but the pacing, the missing characters, I think there's only 4 or 5 characters from the show that returns, and the rushed ending stop it from being as good as it could have been. It should have been an entire season instead of a movie, so I'm giving Peaky Blinders The Immortal Man a 3 out of 5. The Peaky Blinders story deserved a great ending, and this film gives us a good one, but not the great one I think the series deserved. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the film and whether you think it lived up to the series. If you enjoyed this review, please like, share and subscribe by order of the Peaky Blinders. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.